Friend Don Costa introduced him. He became his producer. So we were down in Miami. He's doing a movie. He calls me up. He says, "Kid, come on, have dinner." I go and have dinner with him. This is like 67.
For 60 years, Paul Anka kept Frank Sinatra's secrets buried. Now, at 84, he's finally talking. Back in 1968, Sinatra looked him in the eye and said something that changed everything. It wasn't just about my way. It was about mob ties, buried scandals, and people who vanished when they crossed the chairman. Anka saw it all. He stayed silent through threats and bribes. But age loosens tongues, and now the stories he's telling could ruin Sinatra's legacy. Paul Anka was born July 30, 1941, at Ottawa Civic Hospital, the son of immigrants. His father, Andrew Anka, came from Damascus in 1924 with just 15 and opened a small spaghetti restaurant on Laurier Avenue called Locanda. Ottawa journalists loved it. Paul spent weekends greeting customers, learning politics at Table 4, watching his father work a room. At home, money was tight. They lived in a two-bedroom house on Clearview Avenue with 5 people and brutal winters. Paul practiced singing in mittens. What shaped him were his father's hustle and his mother Camelia's Arabic lullabies. Her Lebanese melodies stayed with him. By 12, Paul had formed a band called the Bobby Sockers with classmates Raymond Carrier and Gerald Barrow. They rehearsed in the basement next to crates of tomatoes, sometimes until 2 in the morning. He taught himself piano from a worn-out John Thompson book and wrote lyrics during math class. At 13, he'd written 27 songs. His music teacher remembered them all. When he wanted to perform at Quebec's Fairmont Club but was underage, he took his mom's Buick without a license, drove across the river, and talked his way in. He sang an original song, I Confess, won 25 AL and a week of bookings. The police gave him a warning. Everyone else saw a kid who wouldn't give up. Every Sunday he sang hymns at St. Elias Cathedral, mixing them with boogie rhythms from late-night CKUA radio. The result was something unique. At a YMCA contest, a judge called it weirdly hypnotic. By 1955, Paul had become the star of every local Show 42 performances in 6 months, including one during halftime at a Rough Riders game in front of 19,000 fans. He performed a song with a bizarre name, Blau Wild Devist Fontaine, taken from an English class book. The Ottawa Journal dubbed him the pint-sized Sinatra. At 14, he was earning $60 a week, 3 times the average allowance. Then came the Campbell's Soup Can contest. Mail in 1,500 labels and win $100 and a free ticket anywhere in North America. Paul dug through IGA dumpsters for 3 months, collecting 12 sacks of tomato soup labels. His sister Miriam helped glue them onto entry forms. On May 5, 1955, he won. He chose Los Angeles, had $200 in his pocket, and stayed with his Uncle Morris in Hawthorne. He hitchhiked 18 kilometers to Modern Records, left with a demo, and saw the Capitol Records Tower for the first time. He swore he'd be inside one day. That Christmas, he shocked his parents by announcing he wasn't going back to school. He wanted New York. His father gave him 6 months to get a deal or return to work at the restaurant. On January 1, 1956, Paul boarded a CPR train to Grand Central with 502 suitcases. 53 days into his deadline, he auditioned for Don Costa at ABC Paramount. He sang Diana. Costa called his father in Ottawa and said, "Your boy just wrote a million-seller." Anka never went back to Locanda. Diana was recorded May 19, 1957, at RCA's Studio B and released in July with no advertising. Within 3 weeks, it was on 83 stations. By September, it had hit #1 in 6 countries and sold 9 million copies in 18 months. In the UK, it held the top spot for 9 weeks, selling over 1.25 million records, second only to Rock Around the Clock. Vinyl plants in Edmonton ran 24 hours a day to meet demand. But before the fame, there was rejection. In 1956, during a show at Ottawa's Capitol Theatre, The crowd thought he was lip-syncing. They booed and threw coins. He ran off stage and vowed never to perform in Ottawa again. He kept that promise for 25 years, only returning when the city gave him its key in 1981. He later said that night killed his childhood. By 1959, he was flying constantly. London in January, Sydney in March, Tokyo in June, Havana just before Castro's rise. He was 17, needed a guardian to co-sign his shows, but earned $15,000 a night, more than Sinatra on some evenings. Fans screamed so loud they threw shoes on stage. In Cuba, police banned high heels at concerts. But Anka was more than a singer. He studied the industry. European deals paid better, so he renegotiated. He started Spanka Music at 17, keeping his publishing rights. That meant every time someone played Diana or Lonely Boy, he got paid, not the label. By 18, his songs had earned $2.5 million. He bought a Vegas lounge and a Montreal apartment building. He couldn't legally drink in either. On August 17, 1960, in a small Hamburg club, 4 unknown boys from Liverpool played a set. 3 years later, they and the Stones ruled the charts. Anka faded. His songs flopped. ABC Paramount slashed his budget and dropped him. He was 21, once the best-selling teen idol, now seen as outdated. Radio turned its back. In 1960, he was played 28 times a week in New York. By 1963, just 3. The Beatles were played 55. Most singers would have vanished. Anka didn't. In December 1962, he walked into ABC's office with a cashier's check for $250,000 and bought back every song he'd ever recorded. Execs laughed. His back catalog was only making $40,000 a year, but Anka had the vision. Those songs had 31 foreign covers. By 1970, thanks to Pepsi ads and re-releases, his catalog earned $15 million. By 2020, it had made over $100 million. On his original contract, he'd handwritten one key phrase, all future formats included. That meant he never owed labels for CDs, downloads, or streams. In 1963, he met model Anne de Zogheb on a film set. A year later, they were married in Paris inside the Orly Airport VIP lounge at 2:00 a.m. Frank Sinatra sent a telegram, "Kid, you're crazy, but mazel tov." They had 5 daughters. The marriage lasted 37 years, ending in 2000. Anka admitted he missed birthdays, school plays, and once even fell asleep during a recital. Anne flicked his ear to wake him. "I was the guest star in my own house," he wrote. He blamed constant touring. "The divorce," he said, "was the costliest encore of my career." Just before their wedding, Anka wrote a military march in 48 hours for the longest day. He took one in acting pay in exchange for W-25% of the film's gross. It made $30.5 million. His cut was 76,900 times more than his fee. The march won an Oscar and was adopted by NATO. By 1965, it was played in military parades from Ottawa to Oslo. In Vegas, he became the youngest solo headliner at the Sands. Sammy Davis Jr. mentored him, pushed him into big band territory. By 1964, he held twin residencies and created the modern Vegas Pop Residency, over 2,000 shows by 2025. Then came his masterpiece. In 1968, Sinatra told him he was retiring. "You never wrote me that song," he said. That night haunted Anka. In a thunderstorm, he typed the lyrics to My Way while imagining Sinatra's voice. Sinatra recorded it in one take on December 30, 1968. When he hit the line, "Final Curtain," everyone in the room felt it. The song became an anthem. Anka gave up performer royalties. Sinatra took the spotlight, but Anka's writer cut brought in more than his entire first decade of hits. He used to joke on stage, "I created a monster who stole my baby." Anka kept writing. In 1971, he penned She's a Lady, for Tom Jones in under 3 hours. It hit number 2. He said he hated the lyrics and rewrote them decades later, but it proved he could still craft hits. He also wrote Times of Your Life, a Kodak commercial turned tearjerker inspired by letters from his daughters begging him to be home. It hit number 7. The irony? It was about cherishing moments he was too busy to experience. In 1985, a horn player secretly recorded an 11-minute Anka backstage rant. "No t-shirts on my stage," he yelled. "I'm the only important one on that stage." The band had apparently slacked off during a show, and Anka had reached his breaking point. He tore into them about professionalism, timing, and respect. "This isn't a democracy," he snapped. "It's my name on the poster, my ass on the line." The recording captured more than anger. It revealed the perfectionist at the core of his career. The tape stayed hidden for nearly 2 decades. But in 2004, a former sound engineer digitized it and shared it on a music forum. Within 72 hours, it had more than 150,000 downloads. Musicians started quoting it like scripture. Tour buses passed around t-shirts with his now famous lines. One even read, "Hammer comes down at noon." The tape made its way to Hollywood. Screenwriters Brian Koppelman and David Levian were writing Ocean's 13 when they heard it. They lifted Anka's lines word for word and gave them to Al Pacino's character, casino tycoon Willie Bank. When the film hit theaters in 2007, musicians in the audience instantly recognized the dialogue. Anka wasn't amused. On NPR's Fresh Air, he called the horn player a snake and said he'd been fired within 48 hours of the incident. Off-air, his tour manager confirmed that no recorders were allowed backstage ever again. Bags were checked before and after shows. Even long-time crew weren't exempt. He moved to LA in 1990, saying it was for his daughter's schools and better studio players. But there was more to it. He was chasing new creative territory. He began writing for The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and other TV projects, slowly inching into a new phase of his career where reinvention would be